string. And then again, I'm hammering on with the 4th finger down on the 10th fret B string to end it. Let me play that again slow. And then you can end it by playing the 7th fret little E string, followed by a hammer on to the 8th fret. And then, of course, you can lead to your G chord from there. But that's one of the licks I got from Albert. And you can move this steel guitar lick around. And actually, the steel guitar lick was just the bend with the G string going down. Now watch how you can move this all around. Now I've actually gone ahead and played this a little bit different, this very last one here. And I'm still moving the G, bending the G string down, only I'm using my 1st finger to bend it down instead of my 3rd finger. So that's what I learned from Albert Lee. And boy, that's a lot of fun to use in your tally playing. Now what I'd like to do is talk to you a little bit about this high-low, low-high pattern that I've come up with to make your solos a little more consistent and fluent. And basically what this consists of is when you start a solo, no matter what key you're in, let's use A for an example. And you're playing right along, and let's say you start the solo in a low register. And as you can hear, we've gone from low to high. So now when we change keys, say we're going to a D from the A. So now what I'm going to do is find the closest D in relation to where I've ended in the A. And I ended with a bend. And my closest D, to go from high back to low again, would be here. And remember, you can use your favorite licks throughout this high, low, low, high pattern. So let's use an open run. Okay, so now I've gone from high to low. Now we're moving up. Let's say we move to our E chord. So we go to the 5 chord in the solo. Now I'm going to go low to high again. So where would be the closest E in relation to where I ended in D? Well, you could either play this E, or you could play this E. Or just flat use your open E string. So now we're going to go low to high. Well, actually, if I end in D here, I would generally want to go up here. So now we've gone from low to high. Now the closest A would be here. And we want to go high to low again. So let me just demonstrate what the high, low, low pattern sounds like using a whole solo. And all I'm going to do is use A, 4 bars, D, 4 bars, E, 4 bars, and then back to A. And this is how a solo would sound using that. Now, I've actually had access to the whole fretboard, and I've made use of that. And so it really looks like I'm moving all around, and that's the freedom that you have as a guitar player to move around. But the high, low, low, high pattern will enable you to know where you are on the fretboard at all times. So for an example, when I went to D, I moved. So I moved back here. Now with E, instead of going here, I actually jumped down here to the 2nd fret and worked my way all the way up to the 12th fret. Now for an example, I could have just gone down to the 5th fret. All right, now what I'd like to do is show you how to use the high-low-low-high pattern. Basically what I'm doing is I'm using a scaleistic approach to work my way to a lick that I want to use from one of my favorite guitarists. So what I'll do if I'm playing an A and I know I want to work low to high to start with in my solo, I'll maybe use like a pentatonic scale or like the blues scale. In my A, and then I know I want to use, chicken pickers use open string licks all the time. So in D I have one that I know how to play real well, feels comfortable, you know you can execute that lick perfectly every time. So in D we'll go to that, and that's high back to low again. Now in E, let's say we want to use an Albert Lee lick and we got to go low to high. Well, we can add that lick because we ended on D here, and our E will start here, and the lick would sound like this. Well, there you have it. It's that easy because your D is that close to the E note that you're going to, and then you're working from low back to high. And another thing that chicken pickers will use are the double stops with the triple picking on top. So we'll end the lick going from high back to low in A. Now let me show you just one more example. Let's say we're in the key of E, and we're going to start high, and we're going to use that Gatton lick. Well, what I like to do in using the high-low-low-high pattern is connect the two licks so that I know where I'm going. So what I would do is I'm working high to low in E, and I have to work low to high when I go to my A. So what I would do is this. Okay, and then again I use that chromatic kind of bluesy scale. And that's kind of along the lines of a pentatonic scale. That one there. And then now that we've gone to A, we need to move to B. And so we started high to low in E, we went low to high in A. Now we need to go back high to low in B. So what I do is I ended up in A here. So what I do is jump to the B here. And that's great for chicken picking. We've used double stops with a bend. All right, and then we've gone from high to low. Now we need to go low to high back in E to end this thing up. So from B, we have an E, 2 frets up the neck. You know, and basically all I'm doing there is I'm using a major scale pattern with a bar on the 9th fret, and I'm actually starting on the 2nd note of the major scale, and I'm using some chromatic notes in there. So that you'd have, and from there you can bend. So there's just another example of using the high-low-low-high pattern. Now what I'd like to do is show you all just a few of my favorite licks to use throughout my chicken picking solos. One that I love to use, of course, is the steel bending licks. And here's an example of that sort of stuff. So let me go ahead and talk to you a little bit about this steel bending. Actually, in doing steel bends, I'm actually approaching it totally opposite from how I would playing a traditional chicken picking solo, where everything's real fast, real abrupt, and in your face. With steel guitar, actually what I do is I like to add a little more delay. And when I show you my gear, I'll show you what we're using here. But I add a real thick delay. And then when you actually play the steel bends, you can play them slow and actually watch where you're going with them. And I'm using the same one I showed earlier, where I'm just bending the G string down a whole tone and leaving that D note where it is. And then you can also use octaves. So I'm walking around the major scale to get to my A. Now that's a little different kind of a steel bend than what I've showed earlier. This one I'm actually walking from the A position on the 7th fret. And you can actually just experiment and bend notes around and see what they sound like. Like bend that G note. And then actually using double stops as a chicken picker, I know where to move that. So what I'm doing is the same thing I showed you here with the triple picking on top, only we've moved the finger position now and the strings that we're using. Now we're on the D and G string. Our second finger is on the 7th fret, D string, and our first finger is on the G string, 6th fret. Now we're moving up the neck, and now our third finger is on the 9th fret, D string, and our first finger is on the 7th fret, G string. And we're still going to bend that G string. And we're bending that up a whole tone. And then slide that very same finger pattern up the neck 2 more frets. So when you're in D, use the bar on the 7th fret, bending the G